All right, so good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining the Care Coordination track. My name is Katia Shell, and I will be kicking us off and then turning over to our track leads. So some of you have been following us since earlier in August, and the day has finally arrived. We're really happy to start testing our FHIR IG. So today we're just gonna do a quick welcome and go over some of the track logistics, and then we'll do a Smart on FHIR demo. Most of you have done this for me already, and I really appreciate it. We have an attendance sheet. We're gonna use it today and tomorrow. It is on our Confluence proposal track page, and then you can also access it via Whova because I put the link to the sheet in the chat. So I'm going to actually turn it over to Evelyn Gallego, our track lead at this time.
Thank you, Katya. Katya, good morning, everyone. We appreciate you joining us today for the Care Coordination track today and tomorrow. So I'm happy day is on. So I just want to introduce ourselves for today. So I'm Evelyn Gallego, one of the track leads. I also serve as the SDO liaison for the Multiple Chronic Conditions MCCE Care Plan project. I'm joined by Gay Dolan, who you'll hear from shortly, who's working on the FHIR IG, and Jerry Goodnow, who is been working steadily on our Smart on FHIR app. So you'll hear from all of us, and of course, Katya, who helps keep us organized and manage all our communications and engagement with our community. So next slide. Oh, I think you went there. Right. Okay, so as track leads, we must start by acknowledging where we will manage all our communications. So if you haven't done already, please make sure you're following us via the Zulip chat. So we have a care coordination stream, so please use that. And of course, we're using Whova, new tool. So please, we'll manage everything through there. We also have a Connectathon Confluence page, of course, where we have all our information. So everything you see today, as well as a recording of this session. So right now, because this is our kickoff, we will be recording this and making it available for anyone who just wants to join us later on. So we don't have to recap this and do it again tomorrow. And of course, we have our track page. So all the information is there. Next slide. So Katya's track, very important for what we do, of course, for our report out is tracking what we're working, what worked, what didn't work. So we have a link here already. Please cut and paste this. Katya's put it in the chat, is it? Yep, track proposal. So Katya, if you don't mind just adding this to the page there.
Sure.
As we're going through, we really need to hear from you all, right? So again, this gives us feedback. You'll hear as we go through our presentation. We'll be doing these tracks for the MCCE Care Plan for the next 2-3 years. So we really want to make sure we get them right and we learn from each testing event. So please give us both good feedback, of course, and constructive. We really encourage you to do so so we can get these right. Thank you. Next slide. Oh, just got some background noise. Our objectives. So our main track goal or goals are twofold: to generate and update a care plan in a clinical setting with our system actors, and then expose or share this care plan. So these are two focus areas for this Connectathon event. Our stretch track goal is that we can coordinate to test specific transactions with other tracks. So for those who joined us in the May Connectathon, we purposely coordinated with other tracks, including the Gravity track and the PASIO ELTSS track. For this one, because we have to focus on the MCCE care plan and the FHIR profiles, where it's very clinically focused. But again, we appreciate many of you are coming in from other tracks and would like to build on this to test others. So we do want to acknowledge it, and we have time, of course, we'd love to do that. Next slide. Here is our timeline for today. So we want to make sure we keep you informed. We have a busy day. We do run from 9 to 7 p.m. We won't keep you till 7 p.m., but we have identified 9 scenarios to go through, and these are scheduled for every 30 minutes, as you notice here. Of course, we incorporate breaks. So this is our schedule, and then the link there as well is, and you'll see it on the care coordination, the track page is our schedule for the next 2 days. So you'll know what we'll be working on at any given time during the 2 days. And then these are the afternoon ones. So we'll wrap up, and I believe, we'll wrap up at 6 today. Try if we wrap up earlier, of course, that's great. But we'll aim by 6 p.m. And really the last hour is just any lessons learned. Of course, if you didn't get a chance to add it to the report out page, we can also speak to it. And then really 5 to 6 is also thinking through of what we'll do tomorrow, right? So these Connectathons are designed so we learn, we build on them from day to day. So our Friday timeline, I think it's the next one, next slide, we'll start again at 9, and we hope to start report outs. We're waiting for the schedule. I think it was just published, so we were asking for it yesterday. Again, all those familiar with Connectathons know that we have to do a report out to HL7 and record it. So we'll wait and get that scheduled today for between 2:30 and 5:30, and then there's the wrap up at 6 p.m. Next slide. Oh, is it the back one? Sorry, Katja, I think I went forward. Is this the last slide? Okay. All right. So before handing it over to Gay, just set the context of the patient persona we are testing. And so you'll see all of this through the 9 scenarios we are testing. So our persona is Patricia Noel. She has several chronic conditions listed here. CKD, diabetes, congestive heart failure, chronic pain, and depression. Her main concerns, again, why we're building a care plan is, she struggles with exercise due to pain. She has chronic pain, struggles to manage her diet and find affordable health food options. So you'll see the weaving of the social risk and social needs here. Her goals, again, this is what you'll see in the profiles, is to lose 10 pounds. And I'm sorry, I'm hearing a lot of background noise. If you're not speaking. Yes, thanks. So the shared goals are lose 10 pounds, improve access to affordable food, and control the pain.
Hey, Katja, I think actually Katja, I think that might be you.
Katja, we're hearing a background noise.
I'm muted. It wasn't me. It was Emma. Sorry, I'm muted.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, it looks like a little. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead and throw it in there. Make it a little bit less formal, anyway. Hi, everybody.
I'll hand it over to you guys. So just lastly are the interventions, increased exercise activity. So Dave's going to go through all these. So this is what you'll see in the profiles, and this is what we'll be testing. All this is further described. We have a patient story and use cases. The link is there as well, and they're on the track page. So with that, next slide goes to Gay.
Okay, so let's see. I think yes, that is the you see at the bottom of the slide there, and it's also on the track page is the link to the implementation guide. And the profiles are listed here, more or less, and but I think that the links are specifically on the Confluence page, and so unfortunately we had a publication issue in Trifolia, but this is the dev link, and that will get you to the profiles. We're going to files also, which Jerry can speak to. Additional files are on a GitHub site. It's not the HL7 GitHub site yet. Just a reminder to folks that we actually will be validating not for 2 years, and so this is Connectathon 1, and our goals are very basic for this. We're taking a subset of the hundreds of profiles that are in the implementation guide, and just trying to retrieve some basic information. And files that you'll find on GitHub, Jerry will point you to. They're bundled profiles, or sorry, bundled files containing like a bundle of care plans, and so that we can kind of test that. And I'm wondering if it might, would it be better to go through the, show the demo? Do you want me to go ahead and show some of the profiles? And the examples are, examples that are in the guide, because I've created the examples that are on the GitHub site are, they contain bits of the data that we want to retrieve. And then there's, in addition, some examples that I was able to create before today, not examples for everything, but there's examples for everything that we're testing in a basic format on GitHub. And a few of the examples actually are fully specified and aligned with the implementation guide's rules. Again, this implementation guide is actually, it's in fairly good shape, given that we've still got 2 years to ballot. All the profiles are developed, and our goal is to have a draft before the end of this month, mid to next month. So there are some clarifications, some explanatory things that still need to be built in here. But you'll see that's the usual. This is being built in Trifolia. There's a table of contents where you can read about the use case and about how we're hoping to integrate questionnaires into an application that would be, that would be to describe how one could implement questionnaires in a integrated into a care plan. I think that so you can get to the use cases up here as well, and the artifact index is actually the best way right now to navigate to all of the profiles. Now we've done, as you can imagine, the care plan profile itself, which we're profiling off of the FHIR care plan resource, and not off of US Core, but all of any profile that is appropriate to be profiled off of US Core is profiled off of US Core, like conditions, R and observations. These are, almost all of these are, the only thing that is different than US Core is the binding to the value set. We have added some additional constraints around must support around time, and goals here also are primarily just a binding to the value set, and labs as well. And this is to be considered a library. All these profiles are considered a library because the main one that you'll focus on, well, if you were implementing, but today we're doing bits of it, but is the care plan profile itself. And here we have some diagrams to help clarify things. This is a high-level diagram, similar. You guys have probably seen this, something like this, or this before. One of our major goals of this is to have machine-assisted care coordination. We don't want this to be this implementation guide to end up being something that is additional burden on a clinician to have to go somewhere else and document stuff they've already documented elsewhere. And so our goal is to be able to, and this is one of the reasons why we have the pattern today, is just see what you can pull in and see what you can share. But primarily for this Connectathon, see what you can pull in, because, you know, again, we want to see if we can have it mostly populated, and then there are certainly things that folks wouldn't be able to do probably in their system, or you know, otherwise link things together. They want to add things. Now so we described that the app that Jerry's going to talk about is not right at this point, but we want to be able to pull things in a logical manner into that app or any other app, or describe how it's done within an EHR. And then this is a profile relationship diagram, and talks about, and Emma, I haven't made some of those changes we talked about the other day. Talks about what profiles we're using and the relationship. And here what we've done, rather than, and this was done on the advice of many, this, by the way, this shows you all of the profiles that are referenced. What we've done is actually just constrain in or refer to the U.S. core. Again, we're not using, we're using base care plan, not the U.S. core care plan, for some because the U.S. core care plan basically is designed to be very basic and not necessarily encourage encoded data or referring to other resources. So we've constrained to just the U.S. core profile, so bringing those into the, like for author and contributors and all the supporting information. We say, here the base profile, if you will, that we're constraining to, and then say, please, for any one of these, you would please see the artifact index page where the particular profiles are described. And let's go back to artifact index again. For this and for another core profile for this guide is the chronic kidney disease condition. And here is one of the ones that has a flushed and tested example in it. But here again, we have a profile relationship diagram, and then you can see the snapshot table and the constraints of we have constraints over must support for. Some of these must supports just are inherited from US Core. What we have, US Core did not require any dating, believe it or not, so no recorded data. I mean, not that they, we have must support. We have a 0 to 1 though, so if you don't have it, you don't have it. But we are trying to encourage it, so we've put up must support. And then we also have down here created actually slices in this instance of actually pulling in some of those profiles in the library that would be considered fairly significant evidence for someone having chronic kidney disease. The example can be reached here. By the way, if they don't, there's only a few that have fully tested examples at this point. And if they up here on this tab, if there's no examples, it's mean because it's not been created yet. So, so then you have to go here, chronic kidney disease, and it shows you this lovely rendering. And then you can look and download the XML or JSON or whatever is your preferred flavor. Just to see what to have a look at the example. And this does incorporate condition actually doesn't have inherent in the base a condition due to, which is pretty common, but there is an available extension, and so that's shown here. We are using that, and we are making that available in the, or describing that in the profile that you may have condition due to. And yeah, so this is a valid example according to the Inferno validator. And let's see, another ones we wanted to show. Let's see. Okay, so so that's one profile that we're going to be testing. If it's possible, we hope to. We have that in the defined scenario. We have that the patient initially has, I think, 3, and then someone will magically go in and change it to stage 4, and then we're going to see if we can pull that into to update the care plan. Let's see. This is another profile that we will be focusing on today. And over US core, the only difference here is the binding. Oh, by the way, our value sets are housed in VSAC. So I'll let Jerry speak to how that validation can occur. And because it is, we don't also pull them into the, and we don't intend to at this point also pull them into the FHIR server, because as a terminologist, having it's not good practice. I mean, you have to be pointing to something that's active and can change based on the underlying code systems. If you notice, in a lot of the FHIR resources and profiles you looked at, the last time something was expanded was like 2 years ago. I can guarantee you there's additional codes or expired codes in those. So anyway, you can reach the value sets by clicking on this, and this will show you the codes. I'll let that load a little bit. So yeah, that's the only place. These other must supports are all inherited from US core. So stuff you guys are probably already working on for those that are working on implementing US core FHIR. Here also there's an example. Same process. You can look at that. We'll look at the JSON this time. It's kind of groovy in this tool. You can do your examples and whatever and upload them, and they automatically are also generated in the other. So if I upload JSON, the XML is generated, and if I upload XML, the JSON is generated. Let's see. So, and here's where you can get to the value set members. In this case, there's only 5 codes. Sometimes you'll go in and there'll be 100 and some codes, and you can either expand it. I don't know if you guys assume most of you are used to VSAC, but you can export the value set results into a spreadsheet. It's a little bit easier to see. There is one issue I was having with end stage renal value. I don't know if we're using that today or not, but where end stage kidney disease, where I was having an issue with ICD-10 being able to update that because I found an error and it needed to update it, and then there was a issue with it in VSAC. And Maureen's on vacation. Let's see, what else do we want to look at? I wanted to look at serum creatinine. There's another one that's in the scenario. And let's see. Here we go. Unfortunately, it recently was implemented to be able to make these alphabetical within those categories, but I have not done that yet. So you'll just have to otherwise search. Again, same difference. Only difference is the binding to the value set. And the example, there's an example here as well. And while you guys are coding in the background, I may make some more examples that are valid examples. And I think that's probably good enough to show. Does anyone have any questions about navigating the IG, or how to navigating the IG, or any other questions that I might be able to answer before handing it over to my developer, Jerry? All right, I think that's it. Jerry, you ready to take over?
Yeah, well, as much as I'm going to be. You should be able, hopefully, now to see the Logic Sandbox on your screen. Recently, we finally got integration into the Smart on Fire launch. I'm going to launch local because there actually is some sort of number of strange behaviors going on today on our backing server out on Google, where it's randomly rejecting requests. So that has to be actually traced down. But that started last night, so haven't had a lot of time to resolve that. Go ahead and pull up our test patient, Patricia Noel. Here we have a fairly standard patient launch from, there we are. And once again, web apps not behaving 100%. For example, I was actually just checking this. For some reason, the web application, even though the API and all the backing work is fetching the social concerns, the web app is not displaying them suddenly. So this is integrated into a combination of view of both the care plan and the patient's data. With direct queries. For a lot of what we're finding, what we need to do in terms of this application is most of the queries are requiring us to make multiple returns and paths and pre-processing of the FHIR data to sort of put it into a decent presentation form, but also to trace through all the linkages from the care plan and related data. Right now, this is running off of literal sets, the short-term sort of scenario for recognized conditions. So if you notice here, chronic kidney disease is a recognized condition on the display. This is indicated that the application actually has some idea what it should do with these, or will at least, as soon as that part works. Letting us launch particular perspectives about the patients from that particular condition or chronic condition that it understands. Let's see here. Right now, this is running locally in quasi-developer mode, not fully, and it is actually currently selected off the CKD care plan for Patricia Noel. There actually are 2 care plans for her up there at this point. In the future, we're also looking at aggregating the results between multiple care plans that are present on the same server. But at this moment, just trying to get all the data streams working from one. The merge will make it transparent once it comes in here. Let's move forward here once again. We basically organize this into 5 tabs, of which right now 2 of them are fully integrated, and the other 3 are actually running off of mock data as we're hooking the data in the back end still madly. The main key was actually making sure all the Smart on Fire stuff worked and dealing with a bunch of UI bugs. I actually have a UI developer who's working with me trying to get these things solved, but they're being a little finicky. So the first page, obviously here is your health and social concerns, looking at the active diagnosis. Initially, this is based on designs done with the VA last year in terms of presenting a care plan. And we've been refining it to reflect both our experience with the FHIR data set and the care plan and what is viable to actually display. A lot of the conceptual work originally was based upon what is easy or valid or is easily supported inside a fairly sophisticated EHR. The intent with this application was to exercise the profiles the GAE is producing. So working with the value sets, for example, to define what makes up chronic kidney disease, to recognize it, what test groups, for example, of tests are going to be important for fetching and displaying in terms of the health evaluation outcomes, et cetera, for that particular condition. So sort of defining the set of what to search for and the value set terms. We do actually plan actively in order in terms to integrate with a direct expansion, and it will be periodically updated based on whatever policy we decide. So the policy is either automatic or obviously at discrete intervals with the VSAC expansion data. The reason for that being is that they are intentional value sets that we want to be able to use. And ideally, we want to be able to use those on a live FHIR server that actually can deal with the expanded value sets. So for example, one of the bonus scenarios inside the track today was being able to do a launch, not a launch, but being able to do a retrieve of any condition that matches chronic kidney condition as described in the profile. In order to be able to do that, you have to be able to basically do a query where you're searching for that within that particular value set. Those queries, at least as far as we've been able to tell on various FHIR, and for that matter, various instantiations of Logica, seem to work at random for different people or not. I actually have not been able to successfully get that query to work on any of my servers, and people I've worked with have reported that sometimes their queries work and sometimes they don't in different circumstances. Anyway, so that's a little bit about the value set problem. Rather than pulling directly from VSAC at a user level, the other issue there to be aware of is that VSAC access APIs require direct user credentials from UMLS, which would require some way of doing a transaction from this application whereby you could exchange your credentials with VSAC. Now, that would require you to effectively log into VSAC again from inside the sort of Smart on FHIR app, and we were avoiding sort of a single sign-on sort of a issue, or having some sort of universal credentials, which is also not currently supported. Looking through the tabs, one of the things we're also doing is looking at the challenges that we find with what the concepts were that are mapped against a regular EHR and the conceptual work that was done with the VA, with how you can actually get to that data, or if you can get to that data in an efficient way inside FHIR. Also, excuse me, we have a lot of smoke here. I don't know if you're aware, but where I am, we actually have FHIR is probably about 10 to 15 miles away. So if my voice locks up a bit, that's probably smoke. We have the concern that various integrations are going to allow write back and others won't. So for example, whether or not you'd be able to mark a diagnosis of active or inactive is going to be dependent upon whether or not the host system is actually going to support that. We haven't put in the full discovery mechanisms. It's intended actually to be more of a configuration mechanism on the particular server. Okay, quickly running through what we see here. This is, once again, coming from the care plan. You have sort of the details here, details of the care plan, any notes that were associated with the intent, what the actual care plan ID was, when it was last revised, etc., if it was categorized. Right now, this is mostly a view-only app, so what would ideally happen, you'd have a more sophisticated version as this evolves that allows you to add additional goals, etc. So let me move through some of these things. Over here in goals and preferences, as we start to see, this is actually the new goals page, which almost no one else has seen until today. There you are. We have expanded out for the practitioner-based goals, which are clinical goals, and those that the patient defines. These are all based upon who actually asserted the goal, which group to stick it into, and currently there's a priority marker indicating if they're high priority, no special priority, or low priority that will appear next to them. And if there is a known target date, it will appear when they're created, will be here. This below, in this section here, is actually a set of the targets discovered by analyzing all of the goals defined for the patient. And ideally, and actually should be, what will happen is once this loads, and this is where my developer left off on Saturday actually, is there are calls to actually find out what each one of the most recent results are if available and show when that result was present. And this actually will code those results based upon if they're in target, out of target, or no information is available about whether they're there. That's why they're all showing up in white. And then we also are looking at the potential patient choices based upon the care plan type. So for example, what's going to be your preferred renal replacement therapy if that's there, would show up, and ideally allow that to be written into the background. Looking over on tab 3, which is the backing information is written, but unfortunately some of the mapping is now occurring. We're looking at the health interventions that should occur. These hopefully, actually maybe even today while we're playing around, the medication should be filling out because I've been working hard on all the mappings. Although, once again, we're finding some issues here. For example, a standard EHR can, say that a particular medication is an ACE inhibitor. Finding out that information actually from a FHIR server isn't actually readily available information. That actually requires additional servers to analyze whether or not what the class actually is of a particular medication. So this column actually will probably be eliminated today, and there's actually, we're replacing with some other information. Dosage information, 40 milligrams daily, turns out to be a non-trivial short description to try to get from FHIR, and actually requires quite a bit of composition to actually get to. This is actually becoming a route rather than dose form, because once again, that information is not readily available. And then finally, the other interesting point here, looking, and these are questions to ask sort of as we discover what tries to map through FHIR. History of adverse reactions for medication, as we're finding, actually, if anyone's done the medication pass, relies upon understanding the allergy intolerances to the particular ingredients of medications and cross-correlating that with an actual medication that's been prescribed. Once again, the list of the adverse reactions are readily available in FHIR, but the analysis about whether or not any particular medication is one that has that allergy intolerance isn't a readily discoverable action that I can find anywhere in FHIR. So that once again requires an outside service to be able to actually fill that in correctly. So that'll be a decision about how we integrate directly. Once again, looking through the care plan, you'll see, whoops, do we hear lots of, I hear lots of beeps in the chat. Anyway. Sections for education, nutrition counseling, referrals. Then also over here as we move through this, the most recent clinical and laboratory test results relative to the condition appear here, along with the graphing. Once again, showing the notion of in and out of range. Most recently retrieved results. These are actually, once again, this is actually the observational fetch was worked on the mid-tier, but this just has not been hooked into actual data fetch. But this is basically the graphing, and the set of the laboratories being returned are what's based upon the profiles defined for the particular chronic conditions observed. And then finally, the application has the basic set of contact information in the care team at this point. As we look forward into this, we're hoping also to be able to integrate, if we can, once again with WriteBack, provider-patient cross-communication, so that there's facility for the patient to communicate with the provider and the provider or the care team members viewing this through the application to be able to respond back to them. And that obviously means an interface change. At this point, all this is being integrated through a backing server, an intermediate tier that helps to aggregate the information and will actually act as common data sourcing for both this provider application and then also a patient-facing application. And as I say, we're hoping to add more writable capabilities and more detailed displays on each one of these things as time and budget permits. I think that's a sort of demonstration walkthrough of the application at its current state today, other than the fact that, well, I expect this box will fill in as soon as I find out why it's breaking. So that's about it for that. Any questions?
Thank you, Jerry and Gay. So these are the 9 scenarios that we would like to test for these 2 days, and these are on the track page. And we've scheduled these for every 30 minutes to an hour. So our first scenario is the ability for our system actors to test the retrieval of the CKD care plan from the EHR. And again, all these are listed, the GET transactions are on the track page. The second scenario is updating the MCC CKD condition or health concern, supporting information from CKD stage 3 to CKD stage 4. Then we'll be followed by retrieving any relevant patient CKD lab from the EHR. And this is the app being able to retrieve them or retrieve them from another server where they're available on the logical server. Scenario 4 is retrieving the medication statement. 5 is retrieving the questionnaire response for pain perception. 6, and I think 5 is a bonus as well, but I think we have pain data. 6 is retrieve the patient's chronic pain condition from the EHR and add it to the client care plan. So scenario 6 is where we really get into actually making changes based on other data available. So really important. 7 is retrieving the patient's weight observation again and adding it. So all these things are incremental. And then adding, so we're adding both a weight observation and a weight goal. And then our last one is also a bonus. We want to be able to retrieve the referral to a dietitian. Gay, anything else you want to add to this? Or further define?
I don't think so. I'm adding links to value sets. I put some in the chat here, and I'm putting them in the in the Zulip chat as well. So I think I'm just going to put the Zulip chat in the chat here again. So people could see, because I always say that, oh, I put it in the chat, and I'm like, dang, I don't have that chat open. I'll put as needed information in the Zulip chat, including value sets, or if anybody needs anything about respective terms or being pointed to, profiles in the IG, etc. There for the bonus, there's a couple of things I need to do as we're, is to add some. We're using the BSCR one profile within the BSCR implementation guide, which is a constrained version of the service request. Only one. We're not using the whole implementation guide. We're going to see how that works. I know, things might change, but we've linked directly to that profile, and so as things change in the profiles we refer to, actually that is something I should mention. So within the implementation guide, we're using some SIMI profiles for body weight and blood pressure and BMI. Those are actually currently under ballot right now, but since we're not going to ballot till September, we figured it's okay to use this. And again, the links are directly to those published links, and they're not brought in separately where they could get stale into the IG. And so right now you won't see them in the artifact index list, but they're brought into the care plan profile, and so you can link to them there. And anyway, so with respect to BSER, we're just directly using that one profile. I had that up just a second ago, but you can get that in the care plan profile itself. But what we haven't defined then is like the list of codes that we're interested in. And, again, we didn't necessarily want to constrain that, but provide a list of codes that, with respect to kidney disease and other chronic conditions that we're interested in. And so I hope to get at least a couple of those to test together for some test data while you developers are developing stuff. I think that's all that I had.
Thanks, Jay. And this slide is just a recap of our resources. So I think we've already posted the Logica server. These are the various clients we know of. Again, if there are any new, it sounds like we have new participants. What system actor role are you going to play? Are you going to be the provider app, patient app, EHR? And then all the, we've walked through the IG and where the care plan data is. So everything is on the GitHub. Next slide. I think we're ready to start testing. Just watching time.